and that's why it's also known as the logical layer of a program. Hi everyone. All right. Uh, let's talk about backend this time. So in the last video, we did talk about backend in an overview, but let's talk about it in detail. To understand backend, and imagine it in this way. You did have visited those beautiful websites, right? We have seen those lazy scrollings and then those beautiful, magnificent scrolling that are present in Apple website or the website that we do see around in the world. Yeah, if you do think about it, yeah, that's not backend. But if you have ever thought that whenever I do use my Google Maps, but somehow it does knows always which path that I should take for the minimum traffic, and then it can make me reach there faster, that's backend. Yes. So backend systems are the one which holds the core logic of how an application works and how the processing is happening behind it. Now in Google Maps, we do see that the logic from to reach from point A to point B does resides in the backend, and that's why it's also known as the logical layer of a program. But why do we need to know backends? Well, try to understand in this way. Remember using those 2 GB or 1 GB flash drives in our childhood to transfer that movie from the flash drive to the computer, and just we used to do the copy and then just sit there to know and see that it will take some time to get it copied. Yeah. So same thing. Imagine a very big number, multiplied by 2, and then take that size of that movie that you wish to transfer, and internet is still bigger than that number. Yeah, the amount of data that happens that resides in the back end of the internet, and it moves from one place to another, one device to another. Those streaming videos that we do see, those images, those wallpapers, those cat videos that we always browse, yeah, all of those moving from one places to another is done by a backend and by a backend developer somewhere. So now, how do I design a simple backend? Let's look at that way. So a backend designing. Now, when we do look at backend from a distance, this is how I can we can define it. So there are majorly three components that we can define in it. One is something known as the API layer. Another one that we do have is our business logic layer. Business layer. And then the third one is something known as the database. Okay. And then these guys talking to each other is known as a backend. Oh, the database. Yeah. Now, let's try to understand them one by one. And this is an overview of if I try to see a backend from a far distance. Let's try to see that from a far distance. For this video, we will be digging in deep about each and every component in the coming videos. But let's do this one. So, as we know, API is the one that actually talks to the client. So if you do have your web browser here, or you have your mobile system here, okay, uh, your mobile or your web browser does talks to the API, or saying it out as API gateway. Okay, and these guys talk back and front. So all of the interaction of the client that is happening does happens through this thing as known as the API gateway. Okay, these two guys are not exposed to the client, security reasons and other reasons as well. So yeah, client has certain tasks and it wants to get those done. So it interacts on one specific point of the internet, that is the API layer. Now, the business layer. This guy holds the core logic of your business. By business, what I mean is if you do have any website and it is made to do a certain task, or even part of a website which is made to do a certain task is handled by a business layer. So when one says that get me that latest trending song, okay, or get me that specific puppy video, yes, that processing of actually finding it out where does that song resides in the backend is decided by this guy. So holds the code for the core business logic. Okay, yes. So the third component, that is the database layer. Okay, so we all have studied our databases in our engineering, or if you are still in engineering or haven't done engineering, you must have heard about databases at every point of time. Okay, this is the guy who actually holds the data. So holds so holds the data, and data can be of various types. So we can talk about structured data, or something that we know as the tabular data, or the numericals or the strings, something like that. Or we have the other kind of data that is known as the blob data. For example, your multimedia, your photos, your videos, those kind of things comes as a blob data. uh, so databases are of different types according to the type of data that we do wish to store, but this is the component which does actually holds the data. So let's see the overall flow in these components. Let's say that on Instagram you asked for a specific image. Okay, so what happens is you asked for your friend's image that they recently uploaded. Okay, so you go to their profile, and what happens is this mobile makes a request to the API component. The API component is the specific location on internet where your mobile knows where to contact. The API component tells that this is the specific thing the client has asked, or the query that the client has asked. Business layer tries to find out that who is the guy who has asked, and who's the guy they are trying to ask for, or the specific photo that they are trying to ask for. When that is located, that this is what they are asking for, they send it to the DB, and that depends on which kind of DB that we are using, maybe a SQL, NoSQL, or a blob data. The database then tells that yes, this thing is either stored in this specific one, and it returns it back here. The business logic now takes this guy back here, and then you get that data back into your Instagram. That is how, in an overview, a complete flow from your mobile to your database does works. And this part right here is our backend system. Yep. So now we know what does exactly backend holds, the components, and what it does. The question comes as, how do we make a backend system? How to make a backend system? Now there are various ways to classify out the same, but let's look at this way. Okay, one is that you build it from scratch. Simple as that. Build from scratch. What do I mean by that is that you have all these three major components, you code them out from scratch using a specific language that you opt for yourself. Okay, yeah, that is one way. So to build a backend completely from scratch, that is one of the way. And this one is having its own perks and difficulties as well. So for example, if we do talk about some of the ways, uh, let's talk about some of the pros of the same. Okay, so first one that we do can say that when you do have a website and you do build your backend from scratch, they are built according to your specific needs. For example, you might be having users who are having certain business aspect with you. Okay, and when you do develop your code from scratch, you exactly know the public or the audience who's going to use your software and what is their exact requirements. So uh, they are curated for the target audience. Okay, now since they are curated, when we do look in a bigger picture, you know what are the specific business that you seek from these kind of components. Do you want it to be fast? Do you want it to be secure? Do you want it to be reliable? So you have more control over what you are building. Have control of what is being built. Okay, so who actually does these kind of things? Take banks. Now banks have their own backend infrastructure. Why? Because banks do need to take care about very secure transactions, and they need to be happening fast. So for those security reasons, they do develop their own backends. What are the few cons of it? One of the one that I can think of is that they need a lot more engineering as compared to the other methods. What I mean by that is uh, more manpower is needed. Why? Because you're developing everything from scratch. And that also depends on to which layer you want to develop it from scratch. Okay, they can be either even as that you just take a computer and then you develop everything from scratch, for example even your databases, or it can be this just the business layer that you do wish to develop from the same. Okay, they are not easy to make. So for example, let's say that there is a startup. Okay, and startup does has a needs to fulfill the requirement or the functionality for the users. They don't have much of a time that they can spend on. Okay, for example, a startup cannot invest 2 3 years just to develop their backend because they need to give out the results fast. It takes time, so not easy to build and takes time. You cannot do rapid prototyping, rapid prototyping in this. Okay, yeah. So what about the time that which when you don't want to build it from scratch? Okay, how do I do it? Thama. There is something known as a blessing as frameworks. Okay, now what do I mean by a framework or the existing components? These three guys. Okay, so what do we have is we are provided a skeleton of a backend. Okay, all of like this is an overview, but there are smaller components as well. All of those are provided in a skeleton that you can plug in your specific components that you need for a backend, and then you can directly use it. So uh, frameworks in an overview provides a backend, no, provides a skeleton, provides a skeleton for backend development. And this is not true just for the backend. The frameworks which are present for the front end as well does also provides out the same. They also provide a skeleton in which the web pages or the front end applications can be developed faster. So what are few of the benefits of these? These are faster to build, and by that I mean the backends can be built faster using frameworks. Okay, they are comparatively easy to use. Okay, uh, why? Since you are not inventing the wheel again, you already have a skeleton. You basically need to know which framework do you want and how to use that framework according to your needs. That's it. So one of the con of using a backend framework is that they are usually built very robust system. Okay, and so for example, let's talk about Django, okay, or Flask. These are not built for one specific guy, for one specific company. These are built in such a way that people can directly use them and then get their work done, get their business logic done. Okay, and with that comes the extra parts of a framework as well. For example, when we do talk about Django, Django is a very heavy backend framework. Okay, it comes along with a lot of functionalities, and with that also comes the robustness that it can provide. But with robustness, we do have the heavy loads of a backend as well. So these are not curated according to your business needs, so they are heavy. And by heavy I mean comes along with few of the features which might not even be relevant for the business needs, but it is supported by a framework. So another con that we can think of a framework is that if a framework is having a bug, right, it can affect your business layer logic as well. Although the backend frameworks or any of the frameworks which are popularly available in the market are developed by awesome developers, you don't actually expect that, but there is a possibility. Okay, uh, bug in framework can affect your business logic. So we did talk about the backend and few of the frameworks. Let's talk about the languages of the backend as well. So languages of backend. Okay. Um, few of the legacy systems in the backend were developed in Perl, PHP, or even the major infrastructures which are developed are built in Java. Okay, so Java is one of the language which the backends are developed. Okay, but when we do talk about the few of the modern languages, we do talk about Python, as it is good for rapid prototyping. Rapid prototyping. Now, whenever we do hear the word that, why one should learn Python, or why is it so easy and everything, now you know, because Python is in itself is an easy language to learn. There are numerous amount of backend frameworks which does provides the rapid prototyping or even the production level backends for Python. um, few of the upcoming ones, or the one that are really getting popular now and are made for larger applications, one of them certainly is Go or Golang, and another one is Rust. Okay, uh, Next to Java, although Java and JavaScripts are not the same, but JavaScript in backend with Node is also one of the mentions which are used to develop awesome backend structures as well. So this was it for this video. I hope you really liked it, and please feel free to ask any of the questions down in the comment. And thank you so much for watching.